Hey guys, welcome back to my channel where today we're going to be going through a very requested topic, and that is all things foundation. So this video is my complete 101 on foundation. It's perfect for beginners, so if you're out there and you're like, I don't even know where to start when it comes to foundation, or if you're someone who's more advanced and knows all about makeup but just needs a few tips and tricks on how to create that flawless, perfect base. I'm going to be going through how to prep the skin, how to colour match your foundation, how to apply it so it doesn't look cakey, and finally how to set your makeup. So let's get started. Okay guys, so we're starting off with nice clean skin, and of course I already have my skincare on, and guys, trust me when I say this, skincare is the holy grail and is the secret to getting that flawless base. You can by all means go out there and buy like the most expensive foundation, but it will never look great unless your skincare is on point. And equally, you can go out there and buy like a drugstore brand or like a cheaper foundation, and it can still look amazing if your skincare underneath is right. So do make sure before you start that you're using the correct skincare products for your skin type, that you've cleansed the skin, toned and moisturized properly. The more hydrated the skin is, the better your foundation's going to go on and the better it's going to look as well. If you guys would like me to do a separate skincare video, like more focused on that topic, then let me know, drop me a comment below and I can get that done for you soon. So the next step after your skincare is your primer. Now what a primer does is it increases the longevity of your makeup, aka it makes your foundation last a lot longer. It also helps to smooth out certain areas of the skin, and if you've got oily skin, then it can be a holy grail product for just controlling that shine. But I do say that primer is optional, and the reason for that is because it depends on what kind of skin type you have. So for example, I've got quite a dry and sensitive skin type, and a lot of primers just don't sit right on my skin at all. So if you're like me, then don't worry, there are a couple of different options that you can use. So these are a couple of the products that I like to use to help prime my skin type. So the first one is Fix Plus from MAC. Now this is a great little hydrating spray because it acts like a primer and a setting spray. So if you're looking for a one-stop product, then this would be it, because you can spray it on before you apply your foundation. So like your primer, it hydrates your skin. So if you've got kind of more dry skin, then this will be great to prime it. And you can spray it on right at the end as your setting spray as well. I've also got this little product here which I've only recently started using and has actually become one of my favourites. So this is the Embryolisse Cream Concentrate, and it is technically a moisturiser. It's one of the best moisturisers that I've tried for dry skin, and especially if you've got sensitive skin. But it also acts like a makeup primer. So again, a bit of a two-in-one, and it gives the most loveliest texture to the skin before you apply your makeup. So guys, there are loads of similar products out there on the market, but as I always say, do your research, see what suits you best. These are just a couple of my recommendations. Of course, if you've got oily skin, then you want to go for an oil-free primer to help keep that shine in check, and you guys are lucky because a lot of the primers out there will suit your skin type. So how you prep your skin, which is your skincare and your primer, is now going to make the biggest difference before we apply our foundation. So I'm just going to go in with the Embryolisse cream today because I feel like my skin needs a little bit more moisture. To be honest guys, the other reason why I say that primer is optional is mainly because I only really use it if I've got a special occasion to go to. Otherwise, my foundation and a good setting powder does the trick just fine. And this is why I usually tell people that it all depends on your skin type. If you find that your makeup doesn't last as long as you want it to, then it's worth using a primer. Right, so next up we're going to be doing some foundation colour matching, and I know this is something that a lot of people struggle with, so I'm going to go through it step by step. The first thing I've done is picked 3 foundations that I think are the closest to my skin tone. So this is your starting point guys, just have a look at the bottles and have a look at which 3 you think match your skin tone the best. Always go for 3, especially if you're a beginner and you're matching yourselves, because it will give you a good comparison. So you may have noticed that I've also picked 3 foundations which are all a yellow undertone. So let's talk about undertone for a second, because I know that's something that a lot of people get confused by. So your undertone is actually different from your skin tone. Your skin tone is a colour that you see when you look at yourself in the mirror. So that can be anywhere between fair, light, medium, dark or deep. So essentially it's just the shade of your skin. Whereas your undertone is the underlying colour that your skin tone shows up as. And this can be either warm, aka yellow, or it can be cool, which is more pink. So that's what makeup artists mean when they say you're either more yellow or more pink. It's not that you are the colour yellow or you are the colour pink, it's more what your undertone is like. Some people are also a neutral undertone, which means they're neither yellow or pink, so you guys are quite lucky because you can match to most foundations. So this is why your skin tone, which is like the shade of your skin, so light, medium or dark, can change throughout the year. So depending on whether it's summer or winter, however, your undertone will always remain the same. Now, if you go online and you search, how do I find my undertone? There's going to be loads of different kind of weird techniques and tips that they give. I've seen things like look at the colour of your veins, I've seen, you know, try gold jewellery or silver jewellery, and to be honest with you, none of those are accurate. So the first thing that I suggest is just to look and observe your skin tone, and especially looking at your neck and your chest, because sometimes our cheeks tend to be a little bit more pink, especially if you're more fair or light skin toned, and that might cause you to pick the wrong undertone. So it's always good to observe not just your face, but your neck and your chest. If you're still confused, then the best thing to do is just test the foundation. Honestly, if you test a foundation that is a wrong undertone, so say for example you are more of a yellow or warm undertone and you apply foundation that is more cool or pink, then you will see it straight away. Like, it won't just look like the wrong colour, it won't look like it's too light or dark, it will just look off. And honestly, that's the best way to test it out, is just to try it. So as you can see, because I already know that I'm more of a warm undertone, I've picked 3 foundations that are more yellow. So now I just need to test out whether these are too light or too dark for my skin. I've deliberately gone for 3 brands here, mainly because it's just about matching the colour. I do like all 3 of these foundations, it just depends on what my skin tone is looking like during the year. So I've just popped the 3 shades onto the back of my hand, and I'm going to swatch these using a cotton bud from my cheek all the way down to my jawline. So let's get one thing straight. The back of your hand or your wrist is not the right place to test out your foundation. So if you actually look at the difference between my wrist and, you know, my face and even my neck and my chest, it's completely different. So that's a big no-no. Also, the back of your hand is also going to be a little bit different. So yeah, guys, just stay away from your hands. Where we're going to test this out is all the way from your cheek down to your jawline, because we want to see how that colour looks all the way throughout. So if you just tested it out on your cheeks tend to be a little bit lighter than the rest of your face, whereas your forehead and your jawline tends to be a little bit darker. So it's important to see how that colour runs all the way throughout. So I'm taking that first shade and I'm just going to swatch it. As you can see, I'm taking quite a decent amount because that's the only way you're going to be able to really tell what that foundation colour will look like. I see a lot of people when they test their foundations, they kind of just like rub it into the skin, and that's just not going to work because you're just going to rub it in and you're not going to truly be able to see the tone of that foundation. I'm then going to apply the second colour right next to it, just so we can have that kind of comparison between the two. And then last but not least, we're going to apply the third shade. So now I'm just going to let these kind of sit for a couple of minutes. And that's because if you've ever had this happen where you've applied your foundation, it looks like a great colour, and then a couple of minutes later, it starts to look a little bit orange or a little bit darker. That's what happens when your foundation oxidizes. And what that means is the foundation has been exposed to the oxygen in the air, which is sometimes what causes it to go a shade or two darker. So now that these have sat for a couple of minutes, we can start to take a look. So the first shade that I applied right here, interestingly enough, it matches my cheeks perfectly. But as we start to scan our eyes, and this is what you need to do, you need to kind of look at your foundation and the tone going all the way throughout. So if I scan my eyes and I look all the way from my forehead down to my cheek, my jawline and my neck and chest, we can see that towards the neck and the chest, and even the shoulders, it's looking a little bit light. So this foundation, funnily enough, is my Nars foundation in Barcelona, and this actually matches me like perfectly most of the time. But I think because obviously recently it's been summer, it's been a little bit warmer, and I've been a bit more outdoors, I've clearly tanned or caught a little bit of the sun. So if a foundation looks sometimes a little bit ashy or grey, that means it's too light. If we then look at the third one right here, you can see it's completely orange, and that is when a foundation is just way too dark. However, if we look at the middle one, which is the second colour that we applied, you can see that that literally disappears into the rest of the skin. So if a foundation disappears when you're trying to swatch it, that means it's literally the perfect colour. We can also see how that shade in the middle runs all the way throughout the rest of my kind of skin tone. So not just my face, but also towards my neck and my chest, and it just is the perfect match. So that shade in the middle, which is the one I'm going for today, is the MAC Face and Body Foundation in C5. So of course, make sure that you wipe off your swatches before you apply your foundation. Now it's time to apply it, and I'm going to use my beauty blender for today, but by all means you can also use a brush. Guys, as long as you're not using your fingers for applying your foundation, that is the main thing. So always a sponge or a brush and it will give you the best finish. Your fingers will just make the foundation go patchy, and foundations aren't created or designed to be rubbed into the skin. So please use the right tool and you'll see a big difference. If you are using a sponge or a beauty blender though, it's really important to use it damp. So do not use this dry, otherwise it will soak up all the foundation. And this is the other reason why I really like the Fix Plus, because instead of running this underneath a tap, I just have this handy and I can just spray my beauty blender and get it nice and damp. So I've just popped the foundation onto the back of my hand. Guys, I see it all the time online where people are like pouring foundation onto their skin, and I cannot tell you like how that really, like, I don't want to say irritates me, but I'm kind of like, why? Like, why? Because then you don't know how much you're actually using, and then you're sat there trying to blend all this foundation that you've poured onto your face. Like, just don't do it, guys. You're better off putting it on the back of your hand, and then you can take a little bit of time and apply that onto your skin. And I've literally taken half of what I've poured out. So at this stage, you don't want to take a whole load of foundation and try and apply that on. You want to start off in the center of the face. So I like to go down my nose and my forehead and then start to blend that out. With my beauty blender, I like to use a kind of bouncing technique, or you can kind of swipe it across the face. So I use a mix of both. So I always get asked, how do I apply foundation so that it looks flawless and it doesn't look cakey? Well, your first step is how you prepped your skin. So that's why I said your skincare and using the right primer is really, really important. The next is how you're applying it. So using kind of this bouncing technique, or even just using a brush to kind of buff the foundation into the skin. But mainly, guys, is using your foundation in layers. So like I said earlier, there's no point in you taking a whole load of foundation in one go and trying to whack that on and hope for the best. It's going to go cakey, it's not going to look right, and it's not going to have enough space for the foundation to blend. What you want to do is apply like a nice even layer like I've done here. Now for some of you who maybe want to go for a natural foundation look, you can leave it at this. Coverage is very, very personal, but if you want to build this up, then you're better off building this up in layers, one layer at a time, and in thin layers so that your foundation doesn't look cakey. So I'm now going to go back in and apply a little bit more coverage, but I am just dampening my sponge again with the Fix Plus, and I'm going to go in with the rest of the foundation that I poured out onto my hand, and this time round, I'm going to build up that coverage. So apply your second layer only where you need it the most. So wherever you feel like you need coverage is where you're going to apply a little bit more foundation. And this is how you build up an even, flawless looking coverage, because your whole face doesn't need the same amount of product. But in order to build that up and for the foundation not to look cakey, use it in areas where you need it the most. And this will get you a much more kind of flawless and even finish. Towards the end, when I'm happy with the coverage, I really use the beauty blender to kind of push everything into the skin. I really feel like foundation should like melt into the skin. It shouldn't sit on top of your skin like a mask. And so I get left with a lovely little foundation lip. So I'm going to clean that up. Okay, so I feel a little bit better now that my foundation lip has gone. So next up, we're going to move on to concealer. So you might have noticed when I was applying my foundation, I didn't apply anything underneath my eyes just yet. And the reason for this is because I like going straight in with a concealer. I also find that foundation just doesn't sit right for the skin underneath the eyes. So I prefer to just stick to concealer and something full coverage that will help to kind of just brighten up all those shadows. So these are the MAC Prolongwear concealers, and they are one of my favourite concealers to use, especially because these concealers are full coverage but they're really creamy, so they blend out really nicely. Now the reason I've got two here is because I use one shade for underneath my eyes and I use one shade for the rest of my skin. So they might look like the same colour in the bottle, but I promise you they are different. So the one that I use underneath my eyes is a little bit more pink and is also a few shades lighter than the rest of my skin. So as a general rule guys, if you are looking for a concealer to help brighten those dark circles, then go for a concealer that has a slightly more pinky or more of a peachy tone, because that's what's going to counteract the darkness and give it that brightness. However, the concealer that I'm going to use for the rest of my face matches the foundation colour I'm using, which is why it's a little bit more on the yellow side. So first off, I'm going to apply the concealer underneath my eyes, and again I just kind of pump it on the back of my hand, and then I just go in with my finger and kind of just dab that on underneath the eyes. So to blend that in, I'm going to go back in with my sponge, and this time around I'm using the little pointy side, and of course we need to dampen that as well. And then you're pretty much just going to push the concealer into the skin and using the same kind of bouncing and pushing technique. And then I just take what's left of my concealer and I just go over my eyelid area. And this is completely optional guys, but I find that my eyelid area is darker than the rest of my skin. As you can see, the skin is a little bit more pigmented, so I like to just kind of counteract that and use the leftover concealer on my eyelids as well. And then I can go in with the second concealer that matches my foundation onto the rest of my face. So this is if you kind of need, you know, a little bit of concealer on like little blemishes, or if you need like a little extra bit of coverage in certain areas. So again, for me, this tends to be just kind of like around my nose area here where I get a little bit of redness. I've also got a couple of little blemishes just on my chin. So I only use the concealer where I kind of need the extra coverage. So again, it's just about building up those layers where you need it the most. So for everyone, this is gonna, I just noticed what this looks like on the screen. But yeah, for everyone, this is going to look slightly different. Everyone's going to have areas where, you know, they want a little bit more coverage. Once you've done that, you just want to go back in with your beauty blender and start to blend that into the foundation. So as you guys can see, that's given me kind of the perfect coverage, but it doesn't look cakey and it looks nice and smooth. So our final step to getting that perfect base is the setting powder. So I cannot tell you guys how important like the setting powder is, because it literally does what it says on the tin. It sets your makeup, it makes it last throughout the day. So let me put it this way, right? If you didn't use your setting powder, there is absolutely no point in using a primer. Like the main two products that you need in order to make your foundation look good and last a long time is your foundation, your liquid foundation, and a setting powder. Those are like your two kind of, you know, compulsory kind of products. Then you can start throwing in primers and setting sprays to kind of extend that a little bit more. But if you don't have a good liquid foundation and a good setting powder to go on top, then the rest of it just won't work as well. Or if you've got oily skin, then setting powder is even more important because it just controls the shine and the oil on your skin. So the setting powder I'm using today is one of my absolute favorites. I've been using this powder for years now, and it is the MAC Mineralize powder. And this is in the shade Medium Golden. The first thing I like to do is focus on my T-zone and underneath my eye area. I like to use a little sponge to do this because it really helps to kind of push the product into the skin. So firstly, I want to set underneath my eyes, and this is mainly because we don't want any creasing. We want that concealer to stay nice and smooth. So I go in with a little bit of powder, and then all I do is use my little baby sponge and push that underneath the eyes. And you want to keep pushing until it's nicely blended in. And by using this little baby sponge with your powder and really pushing the product in is what's really going to help to stop the creasing underneath the eyes and give you more of a smoother finish. So you can already see the difference once you apply your setting powder. By the way guys, I am using a dry sponge to apply the powder, not a wet one this time. I then take the same sponge, same powder, and I go along my nose area, just around here, because again, it creases mainly around here as well. And of course where I get like my laugh lines, so the lines just coming around here. So you want to make sure that you're really pushing that product into those little areas where you know your makeup's going to break down first. My chin always does it too. And then of course a center of the forehead, which is where we mainly get our shine. So I would advise anyone with dry or sensitive skin, go for a mineral based powder or a powder that has zero talc in it. And that's because these type of powders are really, really fine, which means that when they go onto your skin, they will still set your makeup, but won't make your skin look dry. If you've got oily skin or combination, then again guys, you are lucky. Most powders will suit your skin type. Now once you've used your powder to set those little pesky areas, then you can go in with your big fluffy powder brush and set the rest of your face. So if you're a beginner or you're just super low maintenance, then the best thing to do is carry on using the same powder. However, if you want to take this a step up, then I like to use a second setting powder. And the only reason I like to do this is because I like my makeup to look quite glowy. And I love the finish that this powder gives my skin. So this is the Mercier Candleglow Sheer Perfecting powder. So this powder is super sheer, but it just gives the skin that kind of silky, glowy finish. And I love just using it on like the edges of my face, so just on the outside areas, and of course the temples of the forehead as well. So by using two different powders, I can get that glowy skin finish to my makeup, but at the same time making sure that areas like my under eyes and my T-zone are set properly with a powder that has a little bit more hold to it. And that, guys, is your perfectly set and flawless base complete. The only thing I've got left to do is apply my setting spray. And this is the NYX Dewy Finish Setting Spray. So I absolutely love this product. It's super affordable. It actually works. Like, it's one of the best setting sprays that I've used. And they do a matte version and a dewy version. So depending on what kind of, finish you want to your makeup, you can decide which one to pick. So I really hope you guys enjoyed today's Foundation 101. And if you guys want to see how I created the rest of this makeup look, then head over to my Pop of Colour Summer Makeup tutorial, which is already live on my channel. But if this Foundation 101 video really helped you out today, then give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos like this, then drop me a comment below and let me know what you'd like to see next. Don't forget to drop me a follow on Instagram to see more of what I get up to. And as always, stay beautiful, stay you. Video on skincare. To be honest, guys, so I always say to everyone that it depends on your and somewhere, anywhere, blah blah blah, or it can be a pink undertone. No, go around. Once you've picked the right foundation shade, so this is the Mercier Candle Sheer Glow Perfecting powder. No, that was wrong. And that the oil is controlled.